From the Hall of Fame to fired, Rick Pitino's storied history at the University of Louisville ends in scandal and shame.
And we simply felt that this was in the best interest of the university to make the decision at this point.
We have team coverage to explain how it happened, why it happened, and what happens next.
But this is not the right way to do this. The right thing to do is to bring the coach back.
Cool outside right now, but let me tell you something. It's going to be chilly. I'm going to talk about when to expect 30s in parts of the area next.
After proper notice and an opportunity to be heard, the University of Louisville Athletic Association, Inc. has voted to terminate Richard Pitino under paragraph 6 of his employment contract for just cause.
And he should not be terminated.
A last-minute plea from Rick Pitino's attorney fell on deaf ears today. The University of Louisville Athletics Board with a resounding, unanimous decision to fire its legendary basketball coach. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gilbert Coursey.
And I'm Elizabeth Woolsey. So many aspects to cover here on this huge news day. The decision announced just over an hour ago. We start our team coverage with Lawrence Smith, who spent hours waiting outside closed doors, where Pitino's 16 years at Louisville ended with an announcement that lasted less than a minute.
Even just a few weeks ago, there are words we never thought we would hear, but we heard them in the room right behind me. Rick Pitino has been fired as the head men's basketball coach at the University of Louisville. After a 4-hour closed meeting, the Athletic Association board voting unanimously to terminate for cause the Hall of Fame coach. The last straw, the scandal involving the FBI investigation into alleged payment to the family of a recruit. Here's U of L interim president Greg Postal.
One of the hard things about decisions is that they always have to be about what's best for the university going forward. And so it's not necessary to say anything negative about victories in the past or titles in the past. Those are real things, and the university should be proud of those, but they really don't have anything to do with the current decision. We're trying to look at the facts as they exist today and understand what's in the university's best interest tomorrow.
The board spent more than an hour listening to a defense from Pitino's attorney, Steve Pence. The defense included a thick document containing sworn testimony from Pitino, a polygraph test, text messages, and a report from a private investigator, all making the case that Pitino knew nothing about any plot to pay the family of recruit Brian Bowen, that there is no evidence that Pitino did anything wrong, that he had not lost control of his program and does not deserve, according to Pence, to be fired.
Nobody can guarantee the activity of everyone under them. If that's the case, if this happened on Coach's watch, it happened on President Postal's watch. It happened on Chairman Grissom's watch. You cannot guarantee the conduct of other people. You can do your very best to make sure they comply, and Coach did that.
Well, the board did not agree. What comes next? A fight over how much, if anything more, Rick Pitino will be paid, and that will likely involve a lawsuit, probably a nasty one. At Gromeyer Hall, Lawrence Smith, WDRB News.
Lawrence, thank you. Through good times and bad, Rick Pitino has had a storied career in Louisville.
WDRB's Mike Lissette takes us through Pitino's highs and lows over the past 16 years as the Cards men's basketball coach.
Following a failed stint with the NBA's Boston Celtics, Rick Pitino was named U of L's head coach on March 21, 2001, marking his return to the college game. His Cardinals would soon become NCAA tournament regulars again, culminating with Final Four trips in 2005 and 2012, and then a national championship in 2013. He became the first coach to take teams from 3 different schools to the Final Four. He's nearing 800 career victories and was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013. His coaching tree is almost unparalleled, with 30 former Pitino assistants or players going on to become collegiate head coaches. Recent years, however, have also brought some controversy. The extramarital affair and subsequent extortion trials of Karen Cipher and the ongoing NCAA investigation into the sex scandal at Minardi Hall, which, as of now, will force the national championship banner to be taken down. Then came the tipping point. U of L was accused of being involved in a federal bribery investigation into college basketball recruiting. Pitino placed on unpaid leave, with his fate in the hands of Monday's U of L Athletics Association board meeting.
And we have just learned the results of that meeting. Rick Pitino will not keep his job. Mike Lissette, Rick Bozich join us now with more on this unanimous decision to oust the embattled coach, and it is for cause. Can you explain what that means? What was the basis for today's firing?
Well, I think the basis for the firing was what's come up in the last few weeks with the federal investigation and the allegation that a University of Louisville recruit was given an incentive of $100,000. That's what led to the suspension, and I think that's what led to the termination today, along with the 2015 situation with Katina Powell and other things that have brought a publicity and attention to the university that's made the school unhappy.
There were kind of 8 points that were laid out in the University of Louisville's Athletics Association letter to Pitino's attorney, and several of those points spoke to about his supervision and a culture of whether or not U of L followed the rules and his contribution to whether his subordinates followed the rules.
They brought this up. They brought the fact that Dawkins was on campus. They brought the fact up the parties back in the dorms from a couple of years ago. This was not just an isolated incident for the board. They cited a lot of different things, with this being the tipping point.
I thought arguments for why he should be kept, including let's don't make an emotional decision here. Rick Pitino went so far as to take a voluntary polygraph test that Penn said he passed. I thought those were interesting points, but they still made a decision within 5 hours of the start of this meeting today. What do you think that says about the feelings of where the situation stood today?
Elizabeth, a lot of what I think the leaders of the university decided it was just time to go in another direction. As we've talked about, the drumbeat of negative publicity towards the University of Louisville over the last year has just been unrelenting, and the only way to move forward, I think, was to have a fresh start.
So what's next in terms of the money left on Pitino's contract? We know it's more than $40 million. How much of that does he get, and where does that money come from?
That's going to be decided in the courts. I wish I knew the answer to that, but Rick Pitino is known for putting up a vigorous defense, and I think we've seen him how aggressive he can be. And I think if you read his affidavit and what he said in there, that he's going to defend his reputation and his integrity with every fiber of his body, and this will be a very interesting fight to follow.
I can promise you one thing: this is not the last that Louisville has heard from Rick Pitino.
What do you think is next for him?
It's going to be tough for him. I think a lot of people said, is he going to get back into coaching? I think the first thing he can do before he can do that, they've got to somewhat clear his name. There's been so much rumored around here. He's got to somehow find a spot where he can get back in good standing with most of college athletics. Right now, his name is not good.
So we look ahead now to Wednesday, guys, and the hearing involving U of L Athletics Director Tom Jurich. Do you think that he has the same fate as Pitino today?
I think he's in a better situation. He's got more support from people who are very involved with the university, donors, fundraisers, and I think even some administrators. And I think there's been more of he was suspended with pay as opposed to Rick Pitino. And Tom Jurich has built up a lot of goodwill over his 20 years here, and a lot of his people have come to his defense.
All right, Rick Bozich, Mike Lissette, thank you for your reporting. We'll see you in our next half hour. And this FBI investigation is being felt across the country. More than 24 universities are now reviewing their basketball programs. Louisville is one of the schools conducting internal reviews. Arizona, Auburn, Oklahoma State, and Southern California also on the list. Each of the 4 had assistant coaches arrested, accused of steering future NBA players toward particular sports agents and financial advisors. Last week, the NCAA formed a fact-finding commission on the scandal to be led by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice.
We are, of course, getting a flood of social media reaction to today's news. WDRB's Kate Springer joins us now with some of your comments on the WDRB News Facebook page. Kate?
A lot of you weighing in on the WDRB News Facebook page. Let's start with Bobby Joe Frazier, who says it was necessary if the university wants to ever be reputable again. Charles Grandmason said, I stand with Coach Pitino. Marco weighed in. There is no doubt that he's a great coach. However, with scandal after scandal, it was time for him to go. And Cheryl Ross says, good step for the university. Now get rid of Tom, and that would be a good start. Players who took money should be next.
And we want to hear what you have to say. Let us know what you think on the WDRB News Facebook page and on Twitter. Kate Springer, WDRB News.
You definitely could feel the cooler out there today, but let me tell you, it's about to get a lot colder. 30s, patchy frost. When next?
3 people shot, 2 killed in under an hour overnight. What neighbors here have to say about the violence in their community.
A violent night in West Louisville with several people shot in less than an hour.
2 men were killed, and as WDRB's Hayden Restevsky explained, some neighbors near the crime scene say they fear for their lives.
Around 1 o'clock Monday morning, police found a man shot and killed in this alley behind Northwestern Parkway. And here on Rowan Street, a man was shot and killed less than an hour earlier.
Shots that I heard last night, it was so eerie, like I knew someone had been shot.
The timeline of this violent night begins around midnight when LMPD responds to Rowan Avenue in the Portland neighborhood.
When officers arrived, they located a black male inside a home that had been shot.
Police say the man died on the scene. Then around 1 a.m., just about an hour later, shots ring out in an alley behind Northwestern Parkway in the Shawnee neighborhood.
The person that was shot, it was like their soul was crying out. And I jumped to my feet and I just knew someone had been murdered.
That man died in the alleyway, the second homicide victim overnight.
You know, I knew it was someone's child, someone's son, someone's brother.
The victim's family lives in the area. Neighbors there are emotional.
I'm shook up right now. I'm shaking. I still want to cry.
Some would only speak to us if we agreed to hide their identity, fearing retaliation.
Just for getting on the news and speaking about something that woke me up out of my sleep. I fear for my life. You're right. That's the truth.
Others fear someone they love could become the next victim of Louisville's gun violence.
It has to stop. You know, you're just afraid that eventually it's going to hit your household. So it does have to stop.
Police have not released any information about suspects. If you know anything that could help LMPD solve these crimes, call the tip line at 574-LMPD. Reporting from police headquarters in downtown Louisville, Hayden Restevsky, WDRB News.
WDRB weather, sponsored by VisionWorks, Doctors of Optometry.
Got some ups and downs this week. Overall, I think it's going to generally be a little bit more quiet, but things started off really nicely today. Jasmine Skaggs sent us out of Muckport, Indiana, of the sunrise this morning. Got some pretty nice colors. And this one from Sheila Barker out of Upton, really good colors to start things off this morning. I think we're not going to even see a lot of clouds, so the sunsets and sunrises are probably not going to be as nice as what we saw this morning. Looking at the temperatures, it was cool. We started off at 44 in Jasper, 46 in Henryville, 45 in E-Town, 48 Campbellsville, and I think these numbers, while cool, I think we're actually a touch warm versus where we're going. We've got some 30s, and I think we are going to see some patchy frost in parts of our area tonight. You can see we've still got these cumulus clouds. They're more now towards the bluegrass, and if you look outside in Louisville, you're seeing the clouds decreasing. And to the west, wow, there's basically nothing. A few clouds as we look towards Denver. Between here and there, there's not much. And the clouds today, we had a deep cumulus field in the heat of the afternoon. What we saw is as we've gone later and later into the afternoon, we've lost more and more of these clouds to where we are now. There's only a few left out there. Our skies are mostly sunny. Our temperature is 65. We've got a northeast breeze at 5 miles an hour, which will go light, and we have low dew points. The dew point is where the air temperature cannot get cooler then, and that's important to note. The dew points are in the upper 30s right now, and in ideal conditions would be clear skies, which we will have in light winds. And our air temperatures right now are running at 64 in Carrollton, 60 in E-Town. Looking around the region, definitely cool behind the front, but it's already starting to warm. Des Moines is up 11 degrees in the last 24 hours. The coolest is going to be the next couple of days. And you can see advanced track showing with this high, the bluegrass part of Kentucky has a legit shot of seeing some patchy frost during the overnight. I can't rule out in the rest of the area, but it would be a little bit more widespread as you go further east. Looking into the afternoon tomorrow, we move into the mid-60s. The high is still close enough that I think, again, we could see a little bit of that frost, particular as you go east of I-65, and then we start a warm-up. We go into the near 70-degree range on Wednesday, and late this week with tons of sunshine, we are going to get back into the lower 80s. But tonight it is cool, 42 degrees, patchy frost, and if it occurs, most likely would be east of Louisville Tomorrow afternoon, our high temperatures in at 67. It is going to be a stunning afternoon. The next 3 days, tons of sunshine, few clouds on Wednesday. Thursday, we're sunny and warmer at 75. Next weather 20 minutes from now, Rick, we're going to talk a little bit more about when the 80s return.
Oh, I'm just glad for now that it finally feels like fall out there. Hey, we have an accident to report. This one on 71 northbound. 3 cars are involved. The right-hand's blocked. Here is the latest on that one. You can see exits including 9A and 9B along 265. Right where it meets up with 71. You have to watch out or just give yourself plenty of extra time because it's going to be a slow Monday evening commute. Here's another spot, Dixie Highway. No matter what direction you're going, it is a mess out there. Speeds in the teens. And then one last stop, we'll take a look at Spaghetti Junction on virtual view where things are moving along just fine. Here's a look at 65 near Crittenden Drive where lanes in both directions have no issues to report for now, but we'll keep an eye on the accident along 71. From the Oxmoor Auto Group Traffic Center, I'm Rick DeLuca with WDRB Traffic.
Rick, thank you. Great food for a great cause.
800 people are expected at the 44th annual Taste of Louisville at Bowman Field on Wednesday night. Crowds can sample dishes from Louisville's best and most generous restaurants and breweries. Attendees will vote on the best food in 3 categories: sweet, savory, and swig.
It's a great opportunity to showcase our restaurants for the Kentucky Restaurant Association, of course, to give back to the community.
Tickets cost $65 and proceeds benefit the Kentucky Restaurant Association Louisville chapter, Home of the Innocents, and Jill's Wish. A bourbon boom in Louisville.
It's an expansion. We're looking to the future. We think the best is yet to come.
What that means for Heaven Hill Distillery and the other plans for the family-owned company. Plus, from famed to fired, team coverage of Rick Pitino's termination just ahead.
Heaven Hill Distillery announces a major expansion that will help it produce an extra 100,000 barrels a year.
WDRB's Valerie Chin explains how the company is also helping the West Louisville community.
Cheers. Cheers. With a toast, Heaven Hill Distillery unveils its $25 million expansion.
But boy, this is just a fun and exciting time to be in Louisville if you are at all interested in the bourbon industry.
The expansion at its Bernheim facility on West Breckenridge Street includes a new still, 4 new fermenters, and new infrastructure. To celebrate, Mayor Greg Fisher, Congressman John Yarmouth, and others signed a commemorative barrel.
Today we're producing approximately 300,000 barrels. This is going to allow us to increase our production by about 35% to approximately 400,000 barrels.
Founded in 1935, Heaven Hill Distillery has 1.3 million barrels aging in 54 warehouses throughout Nelson and Jefferson counties. Heaven Hill is considered to be the last remaining family-owned and operated independent Kentucky bourbon company.
The future is going to be bright, particularly for this industry, and we're pleased not only to have it here in downtown Louisville, but we're pleased to be part of this for the entire state of Kentucky.
As a way to give back to the community, Heaven Hill announced a $10,000 partnership with Dare to Care to bring freezers and mobile pantries to distribute fresh food and produce in West Louisville.
When a family-owned operated business like this one is positioned to prosper and do well, what a great provider it is to our community, and that's measured in what it's doing with Dare to Care.
Heaven Hill says while bourbon is popular now, the best is yet to come.
We believe that the industry is on the cusp of continued expansion both domestically and internationally.
Valerie Chin, WDRB News.
If you filed for a tax extension this year, time is up.
The tax extension deadline ends today. Millions of Americans filed for 6 more months to put in their 2016 federal returns. If you still don't file and you owe the IRS money, you'll face a late filing penalty, and those fees mount by the month. If you're owed a return, no real penalty, but don't expect a refund check to arrive anytime soon. Retailers are set to scare up a record $9.1 billion in Halloween sales this year. Most of the money goes toward costumes, candy, and decor. The average American spends, get this, $86 a piece on Halloween.
Banks and tech companies helped fish stocks higher this afternoon, adding to the market's 5 straight weeks of gains. Energy companies are climbing along with oil prices. It's sitting at just under $52 right now. The Dow jumps 85 points to close at 22,956. The Nasdaq gaining 18 points to finish the day at 66.24. And that's today's business news.
There were a number of issues that over time were brought to our attention.
And those issues ultimately led to the firing of Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino.
WDRB has team coverage to explain how, why, and what happens next.
We're trying to look at the facts as they exist today and understand what's in the university's best interest tomorrow.
But the University of Louisville's tomorrow will not include Rick Pitino.
The Hall of Fame coach fired just hours ago in a unanimous decision by the U of L Athletics Board. Now, with scandal after scandal after scandal, WDRB's Lawrence Smith reveals what was the last straw for Pitino. Lawrence?
Well, most everyone expected it was coming, but it was still shocking to hear, coming from this room behind me, Rick Pitino fired as the U of L head men's basketball coach. The Athletics Association board voting unanimously to terminate the coach for cause. During the 4-hour closed-door meeting, Pitino's attorney, Steve Pence, was allowed to make his case. But in the end, it was not enough. The FBI investigation into alleged payment to a recruit's family, combined with the Katina Powell scandal last year, enough to end Rick Pitino's career. I'm joined now by WDRB's Eric Crawford. And Eric, put this in perspective for us. How stunning is it that this Hall of Fame career would end this way?
Well, like you said, it's jarring. We've had a chance to get used to it because he was suspended here a little bit ago, but it was just 30 days ago, a month ago today, that he went down the steps of this building for College Game Day as the guest picker on that show. 10 days later, he went down those steps again, having been suspended, and once he was placed on leave, he wasn't coming back. And that was pretty clear today because before they even took up the subject of Pitino, they gave his replacement, David Padgett, an $800,000 one-year contract as interim basketball coach. So it's been a pretty stunning series of events.
Pence seemed to make a pretty compelling case. In the end, why do you think it wasn't enough?
Well, I think because he was arguing about what happened in this latest incident, and Louisville's Athletic Association acted on the totality of what's happened with recent scandals, and that's the whole key. It wasn't just what happened with this FBI investigation. It's the building nature of scandals. Pitino and his extortion situation, Pitino and the escort situation that happened with Katina Powell. None of these really hit Pitino directly here of these last couple scandals, but just the weight of it was too much for the program to bear.
So what happens next? A fight over money, probably?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen. I think you'll see Rick Pitino go into some kind of media job. He will probably wind up on television and do that for a long time if that's what he wants to do. But they're going to have to settle this, and I hope they can settle it somewhat amicably, but it could get pretty contentious because Steve Pence was making some pretty strong points today.
He was. As Eric said, David Padgett officially hired today as the men's basketball coach. He could make up to $1 million if he wins the NCAA championship. With Eric Crawford, I'm Lawrence Smith at Gromeyer Hall, WDRB News.
Thank you, Lawrence and Eric. And Rick Bozich and Mike Lissette join us now as this latest scandal to hit the U of L men's basketball program continues to unfold. And a new development just in, you have learned that apparently Rick Pitino was offered a settlement.
Yeah, I talked to a friend of Rick Pitino's just a few minutes ago who talked to him, and he's very upset by the decision. He wanted U of L to slow down and have a chance for this whole thing to play out, let it breathe a little bit, and for them to consider his defense. But after they did make the decision to fire, I was told that they offered Rick Pitino a settlement. Can't give you the number yet. Far, far away from the more than $40 million he's possibly going to fight for, and that was declined.
Is the coach going to go after every dollar that is still left on his contract?
It's negotiating, I'm sure, Gilbert. It's a very substantial contract, and he's fighting for his reputation and his integrity, too, in addition to financial gain.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. What do you think his legacy will be at this point? A Hall of Fame coach who's done some great things at Kentucky, Louisville, and elsewhere. How will he be remembered? Will it be this?
It's going to be complicated. Obviously, everyone remembers the championships and at Kentucky and then at Louisville, but the fact of the matter is right now,
everything's up in the air, and everyone is probably ultimately going to judge him on this until he's able to clear his name at least somewhat.
Let's shift now to David Padgett. We talked briefly, Eric talked briefly about, in the midst of all this today, we learned about the terms of his contract, which had kind of been a mystery since he was appointed as acting head coach.
Yeah, David Padgett was making around $300,000 last season. He's now up to $800,000 in base salary with a chance to earn incentives that can bring him up to $1 million, depending on how the team performs this year. Still well below market value for an ACC coach, but this is a different situation than a normal coach taking over, so it's fairer than it was before.
The players just seem to have a sense of relief taking the court Friday at their scrimmage. How do you see this season playing out with so much uncertainty?
Hard to say. It's going to be crazy. Everywhere they go, they're going to be asked about it. On the road, they're going to be taunted and things like that, signs, and have always asked questions about it. They've got some experience dealing with it because it happened 2 years ago, but I think home crowd, the fans should really get behind this team, and they're talented enough that they could have a very good season.
Yeah, but 2 years ago, they had Pitino to kind of drive them through that situation. Now it's a Padgett-led team.
And that could play a factor. Remember, Padgett, this is his first time being a head coach, so in situations down the stretch, new to him, but again, they still have the talent, and if they're able to band together and harness a lot of this energy, who knows what could happen.
Let's just touch on one thing before we wrap up here. We still don't know the fate of suspended AD Tom Jurich. We could learn more about that at the Board of Trustees meeting on Wednesday. If he does keep his job, how does it change?
That's a great question. I don't know if he'd be able to come back in a situation where his role would be diminished or he'd be more reined in, because he's had so much autonomy and authority since he's been here. But the people that you've talked to say that they want to change the dynamics of that position where there would be more control by the president and the Board of Trustees instead of just the athletic director.
I think we should point out that it's a different group of decision makers who are weighing in on Wednesday with Jurich. That's the Board of Trustees for the University of Louisville. Today's decision to terminate Pitino was made by the U of L Athletics Board. Different group, different mindset, and ultimately responsible for different people's jobs.
Exactly right. And the people in the Board of Trustees, we're talking about David Grissom, Papa John Schnatter, and a different group than the Athletic Association for sure. And they've been at the forefront, really, of making some decisions as we've led into the last couple weeks.
All right, Rick Bozich, Mike Lissette, thank you guys for your insight.
Our team coverage continues now. WDRB's John Lewis and Katie George join us live from the University of Louisville.
Guys, what do you think that this means for the future of the basketball program? Weigh in for us.
Well, the future for the U of L basketball program, as far as we know right now, goes into September of 2018. That's when David Padgett's contract will be up. Before all the Rick Pitino discussion, we found out earlier this morning, at the board met, David Padgett named the official acting head coach. He'll make $400,000 base salary, another $400,000 with media and fundraising. So he could get with incentives up to $1 million. Sure. Vince Tyree named the acting AD, which all this we already know. But then it was into what was going to happen with Rick Pitino, and after 5 or 6 hours, we found out.
We did. Those were quick decisions made early this morning, and then it was Rick Pitino's fate, and his attorney, Steve Pence, came down into Grawemeyer Hall and gave his presentation for about an hour or so and handed every member of the ULA board 52 pages of a report basically making a case on Rick Pitino's behalf. And in it is Rick Pitino's affidavit, text messages between Rick Pitino and Brian Bowen's family members, text messages between James Gatto from Adidas, a bunch of different things. I mean, employees, David Padgett statements, and statements from people who have worked from Rick Pitino and said that he has been compliant in everything that they have ever seen from him so far, making a fairly strong case, but apparently Dr. Postal and the board did not deem it enough to keep his job. And so we caught up with Steve Pence after he gave that hour presentation outside of Grawemeyer Hall, as well as Dr. Postal, once the decision was made by the ULA board, and here's what they both had to say.
Well, the right thing is to make the determination that the coach not only did not know, but could not have known of this scheme that was going on. And the right thing to do is to bring the coach back. He's not terminated right now, and he should not be terminated. He should be brought back. If the university wants to negotiate for him to leave at a later time, we can talk about that. But this is not the right way to do this.
We listened carefully to what they said. We read carefully everything they gave us in the booklet of materials. And at the end of the conversation, we felt that our initial decision to begin the process of termination for cause was still in the best interest of the university, and that's why the resolution was put forward and passed.
Yes, Rick Pitino has been terminated today, but I don't think this story ends here. I think that this is the groundwork for a potential lawsuit because Rick Pitino feels that his contract was breached because there is no just cause, in his opinion, for being terminated. So we'll continue to follow that as that unfolds, but we'll be right back here on Wednesday, it seems.
That's right, because the Board of Trustees will meet and they'll talk about the future of Athletic Director Tom Jurich. So, again, we've heard the term tip of the iceberg. I think this is, again, the tip of the iceberg for a lot of issues involving not just U of L, but also college basketball. Yeah. Reporting live from U of L's campus, she's Katie George. I'm John Lewis, WDRB Sports.
Thanks, guys. And let's switch now to U of L Athletics Director Tom Jurich. He could be fired on Wednesday.
WDRB's Travis Ragsdale breaks down why that move could cost the university millions of dollars.
The decision was swift.
Tom Jurich has been placed on a paid administrative leave.
And the action laid out clearly.
The leave will continue until the Board of Trustees has an opportunity to evaluate his continued employment.
That opportunity is this week, and the future of Louisville Athletics Director Tom Jurich is hanging in the balance.
We do not want to rush to judgment about any personnel issue here at the university. It's very early in the process. Additional facts are coming to the president, and so we want to make sure that when we address the issue on the 18th, it's an informed decision.
Trustees has the final say. It is scheduled to meet on Wednesday, but it's unclear if the board will make a final decision. Jurich has been on paid administrative leave since September 27th. Following that announcement, Jurich's attorney sent this letter to interim president Greg Postal. It states that because Postal doesn't, quote, plan for Tom to return to his job in the foreseeable future, Jurich is effectively fired. But just firing the longtime athletics director won't come without complications.
Firing him is either going to be complicated or expensive, or perhaps both.
The board can fire Jurich for cause based upon a knowing violation of the contract, dishonest conduct, or willful misconduct. Even if it's determined Jurich those things, the university would still owe him at least $2 million. That's thanks to this letter in 2011 from then University President James Ramsey that extended Jurich's contract until 2026. The letter also told Jurich, quote, if you are terminated by the university for cause, you shall receive a lump sum payment equal to your actual total compensation, excluding retention payments, paid in the 12-month fiscal year ending prior to the year of termination, end quote. Based upon his previous salaries, that would mean at the very least, the university would owe Jurich somewhere between $2 and $3 million. Even if there is cause to fire Jurich, his contract allows him 30 days to fix whatever issue might have been raised.
There does not appear to be a lot of room in there for firing based on the fact that you are a supervisor of an organization where there was misconduct going on.
Additionally, some employment lawyers believe the language in the contract would make it difficult to fire Jurich for cause based on the circumstances. Should the Board of Trustees fire Jurich without cause, Jurich would be owed at least 4 years of his base salary, or just over $5 million. Jurich has long maintained he knew nothing of misconduct in the men's basketball program, nor contributed in any way to negative publicity the university has received since.
Travis Ragsdale, WDRB News.
On WDRB.com, Chris Otts examines what makes Jurich's contract unique and why firing him for cause might be difficult.
Credibility questions for the Metro Corrections officer now suspended after shooting at a suspected shoplifter at a grocery store. What we covered about cracks in his story and the union's response.
Get more news and weather updates. Download WDRB on your Alexa app for your Echo. Now available.
Doubt today in the story of a Louisville corrections officer who shot at a suspected shoplifter.
He claimed his life was in jeopardy and that he fired on accident. But WDRB has learned of cracks in the story, putting his job on shaky ground.
There was a gun pulled in a
grocery store parking lot. I was outraged by that, and I hope other people are outraged too.
Outraged and outspoken, Bridget Cobb watched chaos unfold in this Kroger parking lot last Wednesday with her 6-year-old son by her side.
He did. He asked what that sound was.
Police say Louisville Metro Corrections officer John Thomas fired his gun at a suspected shoplifter. The rookie officer seen here in red pants.
I didn't see anyone in immediate danger.
Minutes after the gunfire.
I didn't see anyone's life threatened.
Weapon still on his hip.
I did not see a car move. I saw people arguing. I saw someone running.
We now know Cobb may have seen the truth. 2 top law enforcement officials tell WDRB that Kroger's security footage does not match the off-duty officer's story of an accidental shooting.
I would agree with you on that there's been some irregularities compared to the on-scene statements, compared to what the ongoing investigation is turning up.
Troubling for FOP President Tracy Dotson, as this is what he told us last week.
He evaded a suspect trying to run over him with his car, and in the process of that, accidentally fired a shot as he was getting out of the way for his life.
According to our sources, the video shows Thomas shooting on purpose into the back of a car with a young child in the back seat.
And again, it's an ongoing investigation, but if that is the case, then that will be highly disappointing.
I put in a public records request for the security footage from the Kroger, but Metro Corrections denied it, saying it was part of an open investigation. But I'm told it's what's caught on camera that led the jail director to suspend Thomas without pay. Thomas has only been on the job at Metro Corrections 6 months. Now he's on the wrong side of the law, under investigation for wanton endangerment.
I just don't know why a gun was pulled.
And John Thomas is still in his probationary period with Louisville Metro Corrections.
We've talked about it cool. I think we're going to see a frostier potential. It is also showing warm. I'm going to tell you when to expect 82 degrees next.
Wrestling fans, get your stocking stuffers ready.
Superstars from WWE SmackDown evade the KFC Yum Center December 10th. Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and Kevin Owens are all expected in Louisville for the show. Remember that state lawmakers recently relaxed some state regulations to get the sports entertainment company to bring more of its high-profile events to the Commonwealth, but this is a non-televised show. Tickets start at just $18. Head to WDRB.com. That's it, to find out how you can get your tickets. A Tennessee woman sports an, well, we'll call it unusual accessory to run a marathon.
I will be running the marathon in high heels, which is super exciting.
Yes, instead of running shoes, check that out. Irene Sewell strapped into nearly 3-inch stilettos to run this marathon yesterday in Tennessee. She says her goal was to finish the 26.2-mile race. Her doctor encouraged her to train mostly in her running shoes, but Newell says she hit the streets and treadmill every once in a while in her heels. The former professional ballroom dancer got her inspiration by reading about a London woman's quest to be the fastest marathon runner in heels.
She ultimately didn't get the record, so I was just reading about her and I thought, man, with my dancing background and now running background.
All right, mission accomplished. Newell needed to finish in under 7.5 hours, and she crossed the finish line in 7 hours and 28 minutes. Let me tell you, it is hard to stand in heels for 7 hours, much less run in them.
I heard she walked straight to a pedicure.
WDRB weather, sponsored by VisionWorks, Doctors of Optometry.
All right, it's Mark Sin with a look at your forecast and a pretty good fall day today.
It is. It's an interesting week, actually. We've got probably going to see some frost in parts of the area and 80s in the forecast. So there's some big swings, and I think this is probably a prelude to what's to come here over the next couple of weeks. We are going to turn sharply warmer, and then I think we're finally going to see a real dip into much colder early next week. But let's talk about the numbers on the highs today. 65 Louisville, 63 E-Town, 62 Frankfort, 64 in Bedford. A nice afternoon, really. I think overall temperatures felt pretty nice today. And I would say finally feeling somewhat fall-like. Looking around the area, you can see the clouds are now eroding off to the east. In fact, we're losing these clouds pretty quickly. The official high 65 Louisville, after a low of 50. Averages are 70 and 49. And I think we're finally going to start to see some real legit below normal temperatures for next week. But you notice these normals. It just shows you this time of the year we should definitely be getting cooler. It has taken a little bit of time, but I think we're starting to move in that direction. We're at the high, so it may actually still go above that 65. 63 Carrollton, 70. 71 in Jasper, and 62 in E-Town. This is behind the front. The cool goes all the way down to the Atlantic coast. Behind it, it's already starting to warm. The trend here over the next few days is going to be to get a little bit warmer. And what's occurring here, and I want to show you that there really is actually cold. Notice in northern Canada, it is starting to get way, way, way colder. Problem here is it is not along the Rockies, really into southern Canada. And this traditionally means that you're not going to see these major cold spells. My opinion is the pattern's going to start to change next week towards a colder than normal pattern for a lot of the days. But in the short term, without any major disturbance out towards the west, we are going to see conditions starting to trend warmer. Tonight, if you live in the eastern part of our area, you may see a little patchy frost, and you may be doing a little scraping. As we move towards our Wednesday morning, eastern part of the area remains cool. But watch this trend. Wednesday, we're near 70. We're basically sunny on Thursday. While we start cool, we see a high near about 70. And notice this trend. Even on Friday afternoon, we're in the mid-70s. And as we move towards Saturday, with a nice southerly wind, I think we can actually get up to around 80 degrees. I think the front that's really going to bring a more sustained fall period is going to move across the area Monday into Tuesday. Tonight, we're 42. Could see a little patchy frost. Remember, a frost is defined at 36, so I don't think Louisville's going to get to that criteria. Tomorrow afternoon, highs near at 67 degrees. We're a southeast wind at 3 to 5 miles an hour, and as we move into the extended, Wednesday 73. By Friday, we're up near 80. I think Saturday and Sunday, we are going to be in the 80s, and that front, I think that's going to change things, moves through Sunday into Monday. I think we're going to be maybe even some 50s for highs early next week.
Feeling like fall. Thank you, Mark. U of L Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino fired.
Coming up, a last look at what happened, how it happened, and what's next. As we head to break, Mega Millions jackpot for tomorrow, $15 million. Wednesday's Powerball, $156 million.
We want to recap today's big story. The latest scandal to hit the U of L men's basketball program led to Coach Rick Pitino's ouster.
It was a unanimous decision by the U of L Board of Trustees, Athletic Association Board of Trustees, despite an hour-long appeal presentation from his attorney. The decision comes 3 weeks after the FBI tied the school to a federal bribery scandal involving college basketball recruits. Former U of L player and assistant coach David Padgett has been appointed acting head coach to the tune of $800,000 a year, plus bonuses, and athletics director Tom Jurich remains on paid leave.
On October 2nd, the athletics board started the process to fire Pitino. The next day, Vince Tyree was named acting athletics director, and today the U of L Athletics Association voted unanimously to fire Rick Pitino after a 5-hour closed-door meeting. The Board of Trustees, a separate board, meets Wednesday and could decide the fate of suspended athletics director Tom Jurich.
WDRB Sports, WDRB News, all over this story. Look for the articles on our website, WDRB.com. More live reports coming up.